Matthew Perry beat up a future prime minister, got Bruce Willis to take a role on a bet, and once had his heart stop for 5 minutes. After Perry's tragic passing, here's a look back at the most fascinating stories from his life. It's hard to imagine Matthew Perry doing anything other than making audiences laugh because he's been doing it for so long. He got his start guest starring on shows like Charles in Charge and Silver Spoons, and a memorable recurring role on Growing Pains, and has since become synonymous with sitcoms. Believe it or not though, tennis was his first serious ambition. Perry had quite a promising tennis career earlier in life. In his youth, Perry was a highly ranked player on the junior circuit in Canada where he grew up and had real hopes of turning pro. His move to Los Angeles changed things and gave him some perspective. He told Men's Health in 2012, "Giving up tennis wasn't really a decision I had to make. I was a very good tennis player in Ottawa, Canada, nationally ranked when I was like 13. Then I moved to Los Angeles when I was 15 and everyone in LA just killed me. I realized I wouldn't be playing tennis for a living, so I went for acting." In the 1990s, Matthew Perry wasn't just one of the biggest stars on TV, he was one of the biggest actors in Hollywood, period. He and the rest of the cast of Friends were bigger than just about anyone, and that meant that everyone wanted to know who they were dating. Over the years, a few of Perry's high-profile romances have been well chronicled, including his time dating Baywatch star Yasmine Bleeth in 1995.
You're just saying that because you're in love with Yasmine Bleeth.
Well, how could anyone not be in love with Yasmine Bleeth?
He also dated Neve Campbell a few years later, Lizzie Kaplan in the late 2000s, and had a brief engagement to literary manager Molly Hurwitz that was broken off in 2020. What you may not recall are some of his lesser-known loves, including the bold and the beautiful star Maeve Quinlan in 2002, a very brief romance with Gilmore Girls star Lauren Graham a year later, and volleyball player Rachel Dunn not long after. But even more lesser known are some of the famous women he went out with that never turned into relationships, such as an infamous terrible first date with Cameron Diaz. Perry said in his memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing that they were set up on a date, which ended when Diaz accidentally punched Perry in the face after he told a joke during a game of Pictionary. Whoops. Once he became a household name on Friends, it was another superstar that Perry pursued, beginning a relationship with superstar Julia Roberts. As he described to GQ in 2022 after the publication of his memoir, his courtship of Roberts was unbelievably romantic. As Perry detailed, it all started when he began chasing Roberts to be a guest star on Friends. To his surprise, the big screen star showed interest, but only if her part would put her into a storyline with Perry's Chandler Bing. Flattered, Perry realized that Roberts might have an interest in more than just a guest spot. He first tried to woo her with a traditional bouquet of roses, to which Perry got an unusual response. She wanted him to concisely explain quantum physics to her, and it wasn't a joke. Perry explained, "The following day, I sent her a paper all about wave-particle duality and the uncertainty principle and entanglement, and only some of it was metaphorical." They began flirting heavily over facts of all things, and before long, Roberts not only agreed to guest star, but she and Perry became a couple before they even shot her guest appearance. Like many stars and ordinary people alike, Matthew Perry has had his struggles with alcohol and drug addiction, which have been well chronicled. The actor admits that during production on Friends, he was rarely sober, with his substance use so bad that he lived in rehab during part of the show's run.
You know, it's been pretty well documented that I had some problems with alcoholism and addiction.
After years, though, Perry finally focused on cleaning up his life, and he spent $9 million to see it through. More than a dozen surgeries were required to save Perry's life over the years, including one that doctors told his family he almost certainly wouldn't survive. Against all odds, Perry came out the other side, but to keep himself healthy, it cost him millions of dollars. He wrote in his memoir, "I have been to 6,000 AA meetings. I've been to rehab 15 times. I've been in a mental institution, gone to therapy twice a week for 30 years, been to death's door." At one point, after his colon ruptured, Perry's problems were so bad they left him in a coma. He told People, "I was put on a thing called an ECMO machine, which does all the breathing for your heart and your lungs. That's called a Hail Mary. No one survives that." But survive Perry did, and at the time of his death, he'd been sober for nearly 3 years. Few would ever think of Matthew Perry as a brute, and certainly not the kind of person who would go on national television telling stories about how he smacked around the Canadian Prime Minister. Yet, in 2022, Perry did just that, though the important context is that they were in grade school together. Perry told Jimmy Kimmel in 2017 that he and a friend were jealous of Justin Trudeau and, well, beat him up.
We actually beat up Justin Trudeau. You know, I'm not bragging about this. This is terrible. I was a stupid kid.
Kimmel pointed out that the incident occurred when Trudeau's father was the country's sitting prime minister, though it doesn't sound like Perry got into any more serious trouble than your average playground tussler. As for Trudeau himself, the current prime minister responded playfully, challenging Perry to a rematch 2 weeks after he'd made the remarks on Kimmel, well-timed for April Fool's Day. Perry humbly declined a second round. Friends was a show full of big laughs from every member of the cast. Each had a unique style of humor, and Matthew Perry was no exception. But some in the cast weren't always thrilled with the jokes they were given in the script, either feeling they weren't funny or didn't fit their character. After all, playing these roles every week for years, the performers may know their characters better than anyone. And when Perry wanted a different joke, his tactic was to sabotage the script. In her book, End Credits: How I Broke Up with Hollywood, series writer Patty Lynn talked about how the likes of Perry, Jennifer Aniston, and Courtney Cox would ruin jokes written in the script by intentionally delivering them wrong or badly. This would often force the crew to look for a fix, necessitating a rewrite, with the cast themselves often pitching in ideas for new jokes. The pushback on what they deemed as a bad joke wasn't always helpful though, even if they might have made the show better, especially to writers like Lynn, who said, "These sessions had a dire, aggressive quality that lacked all the levity you'd expect from the making of a sitcom." Matthew Perry suffered numerous health crises through the years, which are all well documented. One of the most horrific occurred while he was doing another stint in rehab and was preparing for surgery for reported stomach pain, which required a dose of heavy anesthesia. According to Perry, the drug had actually stopped his heart for 5 full minutes. He wrote, "I was told that some beefy Swiss guy really didn't want the guy from Friends dying on his table and did CPR on me for the full 5 minutes, beating and pounding my chest."
I got CPR, and the guy who saved my life broke 8 ribs.
The broken ribs required more physical rehab. This became a problem for his next movie because he'd just been cast in a major role in Adam McKay's Don't Look Up. As Perry recounts, he was initially to play a Republican journalist who shares the screen with Meryl Streep in a few scenes, and it was heartbreaking to miss out on the role. For some fans, Matthew Perry was the heart and soul of Friends, with his signature wisecracks becoming one of the best things about the series.
You didn't cry when Bambi's mother died?
Yes, it was very sad when the guy stopped drawing the deer.
Believe it or not, though, Matthew Perry almost missed out on the chance to join the series in a leading role, not once, but twice. The first obstacle was that Perry was already committed to another project when it came time to audition for the series.
But I was off the market because I had taken a job on a pilot called LAX 2194.
The series, a sci-fi comedy co-starring Kelly Hu and Ryan Stiles, followed a group of baggage handlers working in the Los Angeles International Airport in the distant future.
In which I had to sort out the aliens' luggage, and that was basically the show.
The goofy series pilot thankfully didn't impress network execs, with one saying it was the worst thing we've ever seen in our lives. Suddenly, Perry was available to audition, and the rest is history. Or so many may think. But the truth is, Chandler and Phoebe were originally intended to be minor supporting characters. Thanks to Perry and Lisa Kudrow's talent, however, that quickly changed. Friends had some impressive recurring guest stars, but few storylines featured as big a name as when we meet Elizabeth's father, Paul, played by Die Hard star Bruce Willis. Even with the show's history of big-name guest stars, Willis's appearance was a big deal, and an even bigger one because he stuck around for 3 whole episodes.
You know, they say that still waters run deep, and I want to swim in yours.
Are you talking about having sex?
Apparently, Willis did it because he lost a bet to Perry. He and Willis met during production of the film The Whole 9 Yards. During filming, the two actors bonded over their love of partying between takes, but during their fun, Willis expressed concerns that the film was going to flop. Perry disagreed, and the two made a wager. If the movie was a hit, Willis had to do a guest spot on Friends. Arriving in theaters in February 2000, The Whole 9 Yards was #1 at the box office en route to a $106 million haul, more than double its $41 million budget. Willis got the last laugh though, as in addition to 3 excellent episodes, Willis took home an Emmy Award for his performance as Paul Stevens. With the triumph of The Whole 9 Yards, Matthew Perry had a major movie win, and with Friends coming to an end not long after, the actor likely saw a path to a new career on the big screen. First up was a sequel, The Whole 10 Yards, reuniting him with Bruce Willis for another run at box office gold. But the follow-up was a major bomb, and it's one that made Perry completely reassess his career. As he wrote in his memoir, that was the moment Hollywood decided to no longer invite Mr. Perry to be in movies. Forced to reevaluate his career, Perry used the failure of The Whole 10 Yards to pivot, looking for quality roles first and foremost. One of his next projects was the Aaron Sorkin-created TV series Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, which arrived with major hype, with many thinking it was going to be the next big hit. Famously overshadowed by the similarly themed 30 Rock from Tina Fey, Studio 60 was canceled after just 1 year, but that didn't stop Perry. Turning to writing, he created Mr. Sunshine in 2011 and Go On in 2012. Neither lasted, but he made a major comeback on The Odd Couple reboot in 2015, which had a solid 3-season run.